Welcome to DNSN Radio, episode number 3. The topic of today's show will be top 5 overachieving and top 5 underachieving users for Madden 16. Now, before we dive into this, we need to define a few terms. First of all, there's an important distinction between overachieving and best and underachieving and worst. I will not be identifying the 5 best and 5 worst users in this podcast. Instead, it will be 5 guys who have exceeded expectations this year and 5 guys who have been below the expectations on them so far this season. So some things that are going to go into that is the team that they have, what we expected of them based on their performance in the past, and some other factors. And so as such, anyone that has not been in the league long enough for sufficient baseline was excluded from this. And so we're looking only at teams who played in Madden 15 and were back for Madden 16. So if you're a new guy, Madden 16 is your first season, you're setting your baseline this year for next year, but you were thrown out of the consideration for this. But before we dive into that, I had a couple user submitted names for the funny names category, and so I'll give a shout out to those. The first comes to us via the Philadelphia Eagles, wide receiver Bubba Maggot. He was drafted by the Falcons, then traded to the Packers, then traded to the Vikings, then traded to the Eagles, and so he's had a wayward NFL career, but Bubba Maggot gets the call out for one of the worst names in Madden. And then we also have the backup center for the San Francisco 49ers, whose name is Cole Cole. No word yet if he came from the same parents as Ryan, but we'll find out. We'll see what we can dig up for that for later. So diving right into our countdown, number 5 on the list of overachieving users is Trevor Williams. In Madden 15, Trevor came into the league as a new guy, and he took over the Denver Broncos. Later in the season, he didn't start out with them from the beginning of the year, but he joined, I believe, with 3 seasons left. He was able to make the playoffs 2 times, but he lost in Wild Card Weekend both times, never winning a playoff game. If you fast forward to Madden 16, Trevor took over the Atlanta Cardinals from day one. He took over the Atlanta Falcons from day one. And in the first Super Bowl in the post-Rob Nefkin era, he won the Super Bowl. And so right away goes from not winning a playoff game in Madden 15 to Super Bowl champion in Madden 16, automatically puts him on this list of overachieving users. But since that time, he's really struggled. He missed the playoffs the season after his Super Bowl. And sitting at 4-3 this season, he looks in line to miss the playoffs for a second year in a row. And so he's the one person out of this whole podcast that you could argue to put him on the overachiever list and the underachiever list. He overachieved by winning the Super Bowl, but he's followed that up by missing the playoffs and perhaps missing a second year. And so if he doesn't pick things up soon, he could find his way on the underachieving list the next time around when we do this. But for now, he's number 5 on our overachievers list. Flipping to the other side, our number 5 underachiever is me. In Madden 15, I was the New Orleans Saints. I won the division and made the playoffs every season, knocked off Rob to make it to the Super Bowl 1 time, had 3 NFC title appearances. And so I had a great resume in Madden 15. In Madden 16, I am also the Saints, and I have made the playoffs every season as the owner of the Saints, but I've only won the division once, and I have yet to make a Super Bowl appearance. Now, in and of itself, that doesn't seem like that big of a letdown. I've won some playoff games, I've had some good seasons, but the truth is, you can't take over a Rob team and not make the Super Bowl and be considered a success. When you take over for the back-to-back reigning champion, there's certain expectations and they've failed to be lived up to so far in New Orleans. And so we'll see if this season I can remedy that and make a run to the playoff or to the Super Bowl myself. Coming in at number 4 on the overachievers list is Ramon. In Madden 2015, he was the Washington Redskins. Largely was not a factor in the postseason races. He did make the playoffs 1 time out of 6 seasons, and he lost on Wild Card Weekend, so he didn't win a playoff game in his only appearance. Now, if you look ahead to this year in Madden 16, he took over the Miami Dolphins. He has had an up and down career throughout this Madden, but he's made the playoffs twice and he's won one playoff game. And he posted an 11-5 record, which was better than his 9-6 record for the best record he had in Madden 15. And so he has definitely overachieved based on what we had expectations for last season. Coming in at number 4 on the underachievers list is Justin Warden. In 2015, he was the New York Jets, and he made the playoffs every season out of the AFC. He lost in the Super Bowl twice, both times to Rob, and one game he was a fumble away from beating Rob, as his running back had 3 fumbles in that game, and he managed to only lose by 3 points. So you could argue that Warden should have won a Super Bowl last year, if not for the Madden God's intervention. And so where is he this year? Well, he's the Baltimore Ravens this year in the AFC again, and he has made it to the AFC Championship game twice, but he's yet to make it to a Super Bowl. And based on the weakness of the AFC from top to bottom, now there's some good teams in the AFC, but the relative ease with which he can make the playoffs, you would have expected him to make a run to the Super Bowl, considering the only thing keeping him from 2 championships last year was Rob. And so that puts him as number 4 on our underachieving list. Back to the overachievers, coming in at number 3 on that list is Michael Frisora. In Madden 15, he was the Detroit Lions. He made the playoffs 4 times in Madden 15, and he advanced to the NFC Championship game 1 time. So he had a good year in Madden 15, but in Madden 16, taking over as the Arizona Cardinals, he won a Super Bowl last season, and if this early season is any indication, he's on track for back-to-back. He's undefeated so far. He's put himself in a position for a bye, and his offense is on fire right now. And he could very well make it back-to-back championships, which brings him in as an overachiever. Number 3 on our underachievers list is Perry Michaels. In Madden 15, Perry was the Houston Texans, and he won the lone Super Bowl that Rob didn't win, knocking off me as the Saints in the Super Bowl championship. That's really all you need to know about his Madden 15 resume. After season 1, only one guy not named Rob won a title, and that was Perry. If you look at his resume in Madden 16, he's been the San Francisco 49ers. His overall record is 43-20-1. He's made the playoffs 3 times, but he's yet to win a playoff game, losing in the first round to the Saints, the Giants, and then last year to the Super Bowl champion Cardinals. Switching back to our overachievers list, number 2 on the list is Kevin Lacey. Lacey was the 49ers in Madden 15, and he made the playoffs the last 2 seasons after a rocky start at the beginning of the year. And he posted his best record was 10-6, but he failed to make any noise in the postseason once he got there. As the Denver Broncos in Madden 16, he had an appearance in the Super Bowl in Season 1, narrowly losing to Rob. And then he had 2 middling seasons where he didn't do so well, but then he made the playoffs again in Season 4, losing in Wild Card Weekend. And he's on track with only 1 loss this season to make the playoffs again. And so based on last year's mediocre records and only making the playoffs twice, Lacey's much improved this year and comes in as our number 2 overachiever. Our number 2 underachiever goes to Miguel. In Madden 15, Miguel took over the Cleveland Browns and he made the playoffs every season. He appeared in the AFC title game. He developed Johnny Manziel into a 99 overall star before Johnny hit the bottle and took to partying. His career really fell apart after he left Miguel's Browns. But Miguel developed this star quarterback. He made noise every season. And you fast forward to this year in Madden 16, he took over the St. Louis Rams, soon to move to LA, and his record so far through 4 seasons is 39-25. So not that great of an overall record. Every season he's been at least 500. He had one 8-8 season. Everything else was above 500. He's made the playoffs 2 times, but he's been eliminated by the Saints in the first round both times. So he's failed to win a playoff game after making runs to the AFC title a couple of times last year. And that earns him our number 2 spot on the underachievers list. Finally, coming in at number 1 on the overachiever list is Shusky. Last year, Shusky was the Cincinnati Bengals before he became the Kansas City Chiefs when Justin McFadden left. And even using the overpowered cheat code team that was the Chiefs, Shusky was never able to make the playoffs. He struggled throughout all of Madden 15. But in Madden 16, he went to the New England Patriots, and he started off just like you would think he would have. 3 straight losing seasons. No reason to suspect anything different. But then in Season 4, he went 11-5 and made a run into the postseason. And as of the recording of this podcast, he's 5-1 and looking to run the table in that division again for a second straight playoff appearance. Going from back of the pack with the loaded Chiefs to 2 straight potential playoff appearances qualifies Shusky for the number 1 overachiever rank. Now our number 1 underachiever for Madden 16. And that award goes to Justin Nefkin. Justin was the Minnesota Vikings in Madden 15. And despite being in a conference with his brother Rob and with one of our other overachievers for Sora, Justin managed to make the playoffs 5 of 6 years in a loaded division. You could argue it was the toughest division in Madden 15. In the playoffs, he lost in the second round 4 times, and he made it all the way to the title game once. But in Madden 16, he has really struggled in Carolina. He's posted a 22-42 overall record. He's only had 1 winning season so far and no playoff appearances. But even with all that said, you look at him this year and he seems to be turning things around. He's sitting at 5-3. He's only 1 game back in the NFC South. And so the question is, can Justin get himself off of the number 1 spot on this list by making the playoffs and making some noise in the crowded, top-heavy NFC this year? It'll be interesting to see how it plays out as the season goes on. But for right now, that's your top 5 over and top 5 underachieving teams for Madden 16. Well, thanks for joining me this week, guys. A little bit shorter show than normal. But next week, we'll be back and we're going to take a deep dive into the NFC North and examine their teams, their records, and what each team in that division needs to do to make the playoffs. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you next time.